Hi guys, it's Bob here. Um, back doing the old live stream, I'm afraid. After an absence of about, I think it's 3 weeks. So if you're already on, great. Put some comments. I'll tell you what I've been up to this week. Been organising a number of things. Come to the finale on Sunday of the How to Let Shit Go seminar, which seemed to go very well, with about 25 participants, which was all well and good actually. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and obviously we had the meditation seminar as well. So I've got 3 of you already online at the moment. See what you guys, who it is, and what you're up to. Really, hiya Phil. I hope you're well. It's all looking good. And here's me fiddling around with the technology, obviously. So if you got anything, if anybody else is on, we've got 2 people watching at the moment. That should prove interesting. I'm not sure whether anybody can see me or not, but I can certainly see me. Hi, Luke. How you doing, mate? It's good to speak to you yesterday. Have a bit of a catch up. I'm just saying how busy it's been the past couple of weeks. I know that people are starting to think about opening their gyms as well. That camera is very high quality, and you know why? Because it cost me £700. The good old buy now, pay later. Yeah, I felt you guys deserve this type of quality, and that is why it is of a high quality. I know. It is good quality. It's a Canon. It's an M50, and I would recommend it. It's 4K. Obviously, I'm using lighting equipment, and I've got really good audio. I've got a nice condenser mic there, so everything's good. So yeah, been reading a lot of books as usual this week, and reorganising the Thai boxing as well. You can literally see my nose hair. Right. Yeah. Oh, it's gone. I don't have any nose hair. No, there's no nose hair there. What are you on about? Look, this is your finest Geordie pubic hair grown out of my face. I suppose, if you want to call it that. Was I sponsored by Canon? No, not sponsored by Canon. But I've had lots of different cameras, Nikons and Olympus and Zeiss and lenses and all sorts of stuff, and this is by far one of the best cameras I've used, and I've got a specific lens for this particular type of shot, believe it or not. That's how sad I am. After years of working behind the camera as an actor and a performer, I had to work out how to use these things correctly and efficiently and effectively. So that is why the quality is good, Phil. Just like the quality of my instruction that I gave you for so many years. Right. I understand we're going to have quite a few people on tonight. That was the impression. We've got 6 people who are watching. It'd be good if those 6 people could put a couple of comments on and I can actually see who those people are. So at the moment, obviously, I can't. I don't know until you make a comment. Wow. Is there a delay in time? That's what I want to know. Is there a delay? I don't know. Oh, well, Ratul could be coming on in a bit, and he's all the way over in India, in the Bengal. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. See who we get on. And Tom's on from Leeds. So we've got good old Tom McLaughlin, who always follows me around like a very large Yorkshire shadow. Yes, there's a delay, and I don't know why there is a delay. Is it an extensively long delay? Let me know. Well, we won't. It must be a long delay then if we haven't gone back there. So I guess there is some sort of delay, and I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why. All the technology's in hand, and yeah, Oh, bit of a delay, but I'm watching it on my telly. That's Tina, Augustina, who's been attending the courses. And we've got 8 people on now, which is great. So come on, Luke, throw a question at me, mate. Ask something pertinent, something useful, and I may be able to come up with something. Yeah. Okay. So there's about a 10-second delay from my end, anyway, which is I find that very odd. I don't know why there is a delay. I really don't. So there you go. Pete Goldman's on. Yeah, we've got. I'd like to hear more about the new book you were talking about. The new book I was talking about yesterday. You put that into the new course. Yeah, the new book that I've just got. Okay, so those of you who know me know that I'm a bit of a philosophy geek with leanings towards Zen and Buddhism, particularly secular Buddhism, and higher K, secular Buddhism. And in all the years I've been practicing it, 50 odd years now, since I was 12, I've always been on a bit of a search, I guess you want to call it that. And I've started to come to conclusions over the years as I've got older about dogmas and belief systems, and that tied in with a lot of the NLP I was doing, because they have very powerful systems for changing beliefs and use things called presuppositions, which are beliefs that you believe to be true until they're no longer useful, in which case you get rid of them. So I've been gradually getting rid of all of my belief systems over the years, and the past couple of weeks I essentially think I've dropped them all. It's quite a bizarre situation. The Greeks call it ataraxia, which is like a tranquility. And it all came together a couple of weeks ago when somebody called Doug Bates, who I follow on Facebook and have been in contact with on Facebook, brought out, finally, after everybody's been hassling him, this fantastic book called Piros Way. Okay? The ancient Greek version of Buddhism. It's a bit of a clumsy title there, but he's essentially put in a nutshell what has been going on for me over the past 50 years. Okay, Pyrrho was a philosopher from the Greek period, and he was in India in 327 to 325 BCE. So that's a long time, 2,500 years ago, you know. And when he went to India, it's believed now by academics that he spent some time with the early Buddhists, and certainly religious people or philosophers of that type in India at the time. And when he came back to Greece, a lot of his ideas on philosophy had changed. And there's Pyrrhonist philosophies are so different to the other Greek Hellenistic philosophies that something must have happened when he was in India. There are some academics will assert that he put the ideas into the Indians. Some say that the Indians give him some ideas, and I think it was probably more of a blend of the two, which I think Doug Bates goes on about in this book. But anyway, Pyrrho came back from India, back to Greece, and started teaching, as philosophers do. And things, as I say, were so strikingly different from what was going on at the time. It caused a lot of dissension and argument. And that's what Pyrrhonism is all about. You argue about beliefs. And in Pyrrhonism, there is simply the evident and the non-evident. Evident things are things that we can see by appearances. So I know this book exists, therefore that will do for me. I know gravity exists because if I drop an apple, it will land on the floor. However, what I don't know and what is non-evident is how gravity works. So we don't know so we don't have a fixed belief about it. So Pyrrhonism fights dogma essentially, and believes that dogma is the end of is what causes the problems essentially. And I've seen that happen so many times over the years. I meet people for therapy who have fixed beliefs about themselves and preconceived ideas. And a lot of religious people have a lot of problems because of their belief systems. And when people start getting trapped within a dogma, Their lives are perturbed, they're anxious, they're worried, and they have the usual day-to-day things that most of us have. When you drop away dogma and start to pull apart those belief systems, there's no place for them to go, really. And you start to find yourself in a point, the Greeks call it eudaimonia, which is a bit like awake. You're sort of aware of what's going on in the moment, and you still can live your life as per usual, but you do it in a very different way. So it's like a paradigm shift, and it takes place at a sort of an intellectual level. The Buddhists used to strive to find this state. They call it nirvana, the extinguishing of desires. They used to believe by practicing meditation and following a path. The Greeks have no traditions for meditation or whatsoever. There's no tradition of meditation in Greek philosophy. But the Puranists said that by argument and by being aware of things as they go on, by being aware that you're getting trapped in a dogmatic system of beliefs and letting it go, non-judging it, you achieve some sense of release. And I guess for me, that's actually what's been happening the past couple of weeks. And it started years ago, but came to a bit of a head with this book, because Doug Bates has put this together in such a way that it sort of finally joined the dots for me. Well, that sounds like a big thing to say, but I heartily recommend this book if you're genuinely interested in changing your life. So I've put a course together based on all of the various practices that I've been involved in over the years. Secular Buddhism, Zen, Pyrrhonism, Hellenistic cultures, philosophy, the philosophy of Hume, Wittgenstein, Schopenhauer, many more, too numerous to mention. I don't want to keep dropping names. Like, I'll sound like some sort of Geordie intellectual, like. I'm putting this course together called Beyond Belief, and this is not a sales pitch for that course, although it could be. And I'm really putting together all of my ideas and thoughts, and I've been sharing it with one or two of you, and with astounding results, I feel. So I want to spend some time and turn it into something that's tangible, that people can go away and use on a day-to-day basis. So that's it. That's what that book is. That's what that book is, you know. So I would hardly recommend it. I've also been getting myself wrapped up in another book, and along with it, actually, because I tend to read about 2 or 3 books on the hop, and it sort of bizarrely coincided with the arrival of this book. And I saw this particular book on the old Amazon. It's called The Knowledge Illusion: The Myth of Individual Thought and the Power of Collective Wisdom. And it's funny because in Pyrrhonism, knowledge is not considered to be fixed. Knowledge is not a thing. Knowledge is about ideas, and again, is in a state of flux, just like beliefs are. And this is written by Stephen Sloman and Philip Fernbach, who it says here on the back of the book, on the end sleeve, it says, Sloman and Fernbach hammer another nail into the coffin of the rational individual. That sounds good to me. Positing that not just rationality, but the very idea of individual thinking is a myth. It's a pretty fascinating book. Steven Pinker, who wrote, a neuroscientist who's written a lot of books, said it's fascinating. It's filled with insights on how we should deal with our individual ignorance and collective wisdom. I'm only just starting to go through it, so I can't really talk about it in any detail except to say that it's essentially about ignorance and illusion, and that knowledge, we get carried away by believing our own lies, if you like, our own metaphors. So there you go. 2 books that I've been reading that I would heartily recommend. It sort of got me on the track of another book, which is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's got nothing to do with Zen and nothing to do with maintenance, sort of. It's more about thought and ideas. And again, Pirsig, who wrote the book, said there's no such thing as fixed knowledge, no such thing. And we get trapped in that and become ignorant as a result. So, yeah. there you go. And that's how I'm going to put them all into that new course. The course starts on the 7th of July. I've already started sort of sending newsletters out. Well, the system has anyway. So, yes, there you go. 15 minutes. 15 minutes in and 45 to go. Will he stick to his timings? Who knows? And will we get any people surfing in the background coming up with witty comments? I've got somebody on here, our band. I don't know who that is, but they said, hey, Bob, hi, all. And then a dot, a comma, a V, and a dot. So I wonder who that is. Yeah, 11 people now watching, and I got 1 thumbs up. Those that have been on this before, Dave's on as well. Hiya, Dave Allen. Good old Dave. If you want your boiler repaired, he's your man. I'm telling you. He's got a brilliant YouTube channel. He's got hundreds of thousands of people following him, and he fixes boilers. So if you get a problem with your boiler, give him a call. He'd probably hate me for that because he's always busy. So if you got any other questions, guys, I was one of the book. Tom's got a dash. Thanks for doing this. See you soon. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for stopping on. I'm reading a book by James Kirkup. James Kirkup, famous author and poet. Some of you English nerds out there, Englishy studenty nerds. Oh, Ratul, of course it is. Ratul's actually in India. Hiya, Ratul. Sorry, mate. Our band. Yes, Ratul. Bandy up. Of course it is. I've been reading a book by James Kirkup. James Kirkup, author and poet who's now dead. A beautiful writer. Comes from South Shields, my hometown. And he wrote a book. Let's have a look. He wrote a book called The Only Child, an autobiography of infancy. That's about South Shields. It's about my hometown. It's amazing. It's like conjures up all the memories of the 50s for me, because he was born in the 40s and grew up in the 50s. And it smells. Oh yeah, how do you know, Phil? I'll see you later, mate. Thanks for coming on. And this is a great book. It's a biographical book, really, about this child's own sexual, so it sort of resonated for me. He says with class resonate. Really soulmate. If we've got any other questions, I'll take on board now. I don't understand the sun's delay systems. That's what we put with that card. There's a funny expression, you can go and powder my nose. I wonder where that came from. I'm sure it goes back to probably Georgian times when you powdered your wig, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So we've got 11 people on at the moment, which is pretty cool. I think maybe next time I'll get my guitar and we'll have a sing-song. I've got a mic issue again. By mic issue, do you mean it's making a funny sound, or it's is that better? I know there's a delay, so if we've got a mic problem, can you just tell me again, Paul? Because I obviously can't hear myself, sadly, like a rose. Sounds all crackling, or is it me? Right, well, what I'll do, guys, is I'll Hopefully I will have come on. Lip reading is hard. Okay, I'm gonna have to try and get this sorted, guys. So give me a second with the microphone. If I, how does that sound? Please tell me that's working. Please. Yes, it seems to be working at this end. I've got all my sounders coming up really good, according to this. Well, how am I doing now? Yay! Thanks, Dave. Okay, so it's back on again. Just an issue with the sound here. This is the problem with going live. I've done live TV back in the day, and that was always a nightmare. And live comedy, obviously, and other live performances. When you get a mistake, you just go with the flow. You have to. And I'm back in the room. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Thanks for putting up with me. And Tina's just sent me a text. It's working. Hey. Yeah. So you probably missed everything I was talking about, James Kirkup, or did you? The Geordie author from South Shields, my hometown. You probably noticed on the new blog as well, I'm doing a lot of posts about South Shields and my childhood. That's going to be like a journey through the 50 Shades of Bob, really. Oh yeah, we lost Phil. She had to powder her nose, Kay. It's a nice English term for wetting your whistle. Or pointing Percy at the porcelain. Porcelain. So thanks for joining us tonight. Anyway, I didn't expect that many to be on. I did put some posts on Facebook and of course LinkedIn and etc. etc. I mean, if anybody's interested, I mean, we can continue to talk about books, we can talk about music, we can talk about anything you really want to. I was talking about the books earlier on about Piros Way. I think it's well worth giving it a read. I know that you, Luke, are very interested in Stoicism, and Pyrrhonists argue against Stoicism because the Stoics are very keen on finding a universal truth. Some of their stuff's quite bizarre, actually. If you're looking at the early days of Stoicism, very strange. I think some of the modern authors have cut those bits out and then taken out the more attractive parts for their own purposes, obviously. I'm not going to do that with my interpretation of Pyrrho, certainly not. Everything's in there. I should have that course sorted by the end of this week, actually, so it should all be up and running. I'm not hearing anything from anybody, so that's either there's a delay or you just want to listen to me prattle on about nothing for the next 40 minutes or so. So anybody got anything they want to ask me about? You know, Q&A, that's why it's called, questions and answers. I think I've prattled on enough and answered Luke's question. Anything at all. Muay Thai, meditation, Western swords, Oriental sword play, sticks, knives, weapons of any kind, blunt and sharp, other books, self-protection, NLP, mental states, my time in mocap, my time as a comedian, you name it. Got a lot of stuff I can talk about. And somebody sent the view from my bar. Justin's just sent me a view from his bar. He has his own bar in the house. So Justin has his own bar in the house. That's very good, that. How big's that screen, Justin? Yeah, lots of popular books and Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic, actually wrote on meditations, which includes some contradictory stuff on Pyrrhonism. He was both a Pyrrhonist and a Stoic. He was a funny character, Marcus Aurelius. And I'm going to start reading a little bit more about him. But without a doubt, the best, quite hard to get through, is a book by Sextus Empiricus called Outlines of Pyrrhonism, which sadly I've got downstairs. Yeah. By the way, after fixing the mic, the voice is a bit different. What, I've turned into a Geordie, or has it got posher? I don't know. Yeah. Luke says, once lockdown ends, will you restart the Carly Silla group? Yes, I will be starting the Silla group up again. I'm going to be doing that once a month. I'm also going to be teaching Scottish Broadsword and Western Sabre. I'm almost near me qualification for that, I reckon. And been teaching a few of you guys online anyway, or helping you anyway. I want to say teaching because I'm not a qualified instructor, whatever that means. So yeah, the Carly and Silla group will be starting back up once a month, and will be on a Sunday afternoon. And of course, there'll also be lots of stuff online. I'm going to be going in the gym in the next couple of weeks, filming masses and masses and masses of stuff. And Julian's on board. Hey, nice one, Julian. Good to see you, mate. Hopefully, you won't have to dash off for something to eat. I actually dashed my dinner down literally a minute before we came online here. Good to see you, Julian. Justin's bar sounds posh, but it's just a converted garage. But it's your converted garage, and guess what? You converted it into a bar, which is probably a Welsh thing to do. So yeah, hopefully the sound's resolved now. It sounds okay. I'm not using one of my best mics because I think I need to put a battery in the new microphone, which is sad but true. So I'll probably put that back online for next week. I'm going to be doing these every week as per usual. Yay, the Scottish Broadsword is great. So Julian's just eaten, and the Scottish Broadsword is great. It is the greatest, one of the greatest. Although I do like sabres. And I believe I've shown you all my broadsword. And as you were aware, I think I got the new one on the last podcast, the last thing I did. And that was the one from Armour Class. That one in Scotland, handmade for me. When I had money, look at the quality, look at the quality. And hopefully that'll look at that. Isn't that a beautiful bit of kit? So there you go, there's your real Scottish broadsword. And yeah, I'll be teaching that as well. I've got quite enamoured of the old Western martial arts now. Something I wish I'd visited. I did visit a long time ago, back in the 90s, with George Silver. Small sword, single stick, dagger and rapier. But just had a flirt with it because I was so busy doing lots of other stuff. And it's only the past year that I've revisited the Western martial arts, specifically the Napoleonic era. Brian Weiss. Who's Brian Weiss, Lockie? Who is Brian Weiss? Maybe I should look him up online. Brian Weiss. Or Weiss. Brian Weiss. Maybe you'll find out and tell me quicker than I can find him online. I don't think I have. And is he in connection with whatever? I wonder what he's in. Oh, he's a psychiatrist. Oh dear, psychiatrists, yeah. Oh no, past life regression. I don't believe in past life regression. That's a dogmatic belief. No. I've met some hypnotists who do that. And because I don't have any beliefs really now, I think the idea of past life means it's not really of any importance at all. It doesn't serve you at all. If there was. I don't think it's going to make any difference, because really, for me, there's only the present moment. The future is yet to come. The past, well, it's gone. Yes, I can learn one or two things from it, learn from your mistakes and so on. But you're going to be. I personally, it's my belief. It's not even a belief as such. My understanding, I guess, based on what I've seen, it doesn't have any value for me in that sense. And psychiatrists are a funny group of people. I'm not saying they're all funny, but certainly most of the ones I've met are a very odd mix of people. my lasting memory of most psychiatrists were them telling me that some patients are resistant to change. And I answered that with the argument, well, don't you mean you just didn't know what you were doing, which they didn't like. Usually when people say things won't change, it's because of their lack of ability to communicate. And you've got to remember, the meaning of communication is the response you get. So I probably won't be reading Brian Weiss. Sorry, Lucky. I have sort of no interest in past life regression. When I use hypnosis, I use it to help people shape their lives at the moment so that their future becomes better or betterish, because you can never know what the future is going to bring, quite simply because the universe is random. It's made up of squiggles, and who knows what's going to happen. Nobody can predict that. Although some people claim they have, and that's a fixed belief, which is very dangerous, obviously. The 60 Stanzas of Reasoning by Naropa. Yeah, Naropa, very famous Tibetan teacher. In fact, there was an institute set up in the United States back in the 60s called the Naropa Institute at Esselen. And again, the Tibetans have sort of got hold of Indian religion, specifically Buddhism, and sort of twisting them around to suit an agenda. They've got a priesthood, they've got temples, they have rituals, and I was heavily involved in Tibetan Buddhism when I was very young, and I was lucky enough to get out of it because I have a very fixed view about the way things should be done. And even their dialectical style and their way of arguing it is very fixed, it's very confining, so you can only go so far with it. And most people I know of any intelligence who've been involved in Tibetan Buddhism have started to question their teachers, which is a good thing, and they've been shut down and have left. And many of them became secular Buddhists who have no attachment to belief systems at all. And they don't wear robes, they don't need to, they don't have statues of the Buddha, which are a fairly recent thing anyway. Statues of the Buddha didn't appear until 500 years after his death, or 400 years after his death, and they were designed by the Greeks, by Greek traders. If you look at the earliest statues in Gandhara, which is now Afghanistan, you'll see that they're very, very Hellenistic, they're very Greek. And they were the earliest statues of the Buddha, based on the images of Apollo and Zeus and the other Greek and Roman gods. But Naropa stanzas, yeah, quite interesting. Read Nagarjuna. If you're interested in reading something with an Eastern bent to it, read Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna was around about 300 AD. And his school of philosophy was called Madhyamika. Very, very, very similar to some of the books I've been reading on Pyrrhonism, and the ideas are very Pyrrhonistic, very Zen. Talked a lot about shunyata, the void and emptiness. And don't get wrapped up in these names, these are just words and titles for things. The concept goes much deeper. There's a deeper structure to words that people need to examine. And the problem is we get trapped with concepts and words and believe they're real. They're not real. They're in a state of flux and change, like everything. And for the first time in 50 years, the past couple of weeks, maybe month, that's when things have become very visceral for me, real. That those concepts, they're no longer an intellectual concept. It's a weird sensation. Very strange. As far as weapons training I've done over the last 3 decades, most of it with you, that's me, I struggle to see any weapon apart from the gun beating a stick fighter. Yeah, a good stick fighter, yeah. A sword would, because of the length of the sword. And the sword is wielded in exactly the same way. And an interesting thing here, Justin, early stick, we had a big tradition in Europe of stick fighting. They called them wasters. It's a stick. People would train to fight with swords with sticks because sticks were safer. Obviously, didn't injure yourself, so you wouldn't get cut in half, lose your arms while you're training. But essentially the movement of the single stick, and I think Lucky will agree with me on this because his background's Filipino stick fighting. The stick is moved exactly like a sword, and in fact the angles that the Filipinos use came from the Spanish, the Portuguese, the English, the French, the Dutch traditions, where strikes were given numbers. So if you look in most of the old treaties from the 1600s onwards, you'll notice that the swordsmen talk about a number 1, a number 2 strike, a number 3, a number 4, 5, a 6, and a 7. And then there were various thrusts, prima, seconda, tierce, overhand, straight, medium guard, underhand this way. So the gun would be all of them hands down, obviously, in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. Having said that, I've seen guns taken off people, I've seen sticks taken off people, because ultimately what underlies any fighting system is determination. The determination of the individual. Yeah, shillelaghs are great. And Carl Price's, I was hoping Carl would be on tonight because he's bought a shillelagh. But there's traditions for stick fighting all over the world, to be fair. I think as long as man could pick up a stick and wave it around, we had stick fighting. But now what I was saying is you must always go back to the fact, the reality, particularly for those who teach martial arts out there, there's one thing going to beat technique or weapon hand down, and that's determination and intent. So I've seen a lot of people who can use weapons, but they have limited intent and determination. And I remember a guy I trained with years ago over in Gloucester, and he said he could get to me with a stick. So I screamed. He looked at me like that, and I rushed in. And then proceeded to grab him by the throat and pull him to the ground while he was trying to hit me with his stick, which of course now he can't because the range is closed down. And I proved my point. It was the only way I could show him because we'd argued the point. And I said, absolute determination beats technique every day. And I've seen it happen so many times. I know people are highly trained, but because they haven't trained the mental side of things, they haven't trained the psychological aspects of their personality, when the fight kicks off, they bottle it and fall apart. In fact, George Silver, back in the 1600s, was talking about that in his Noble Art of Self-Defense. He doesn't use those exact words, but he talks about humours and moods and things like that. And he himself used to fight Italian swordsmen who were considered the most gifted, and he used to beat the shit out of them and then stab them to death with his dirk and small sword. Fascinating. If you look at the history of the English martial arts, it's as rich and varied as the Oriental. And the great thing about it is there's lots of recorded stuff, because we would write these things down and put them in journals and diaries, and manuals would be produced, whereas in the Far East, manuals weren't really, it was an oral tradition, things were handed down. So obviously open to misinterpretation as well, but also evolution. Things would evolve. Each teacher would take it to the next level, which is a sort of a really scientific approach to things. Evidence-based, always evidence-based. If you have evidence for something, then that's probably right. If you don't have evidence, or the evidence is scant, non-evident, it is what it is. Don't get trapped by it. Evening, Rick. Nice to see you on board. We've just been talking about Pyrrhonism, Greek philosophy, stick fighting, swords. Come on, guys, help me out here. Lots of subjects. We've been scooting around. It started with books. We started doing book reviews. So, Justin, P.S. Monday was the 35th anniversary when I started training, officially old as dirt. Yeah, I don't know, I've got some dirt in my garden a bit older than that. And I know some dirty people who are older than 35. Me being one of them, of course. 35 years I've been teaching Justin. Unbelievable. And it's 36 years I've been teaching Muay Thai in Birmingham. And 54 years in October since I started martial arts. 54 years. I started in 68, sorry. I started in 68. So I don't know what that is. It's a long time. I started in Wado-ryu, good old traditional Japanese Wado-ryu. Then moved into Shotokan Goju-ryu. Then my paedophile martial arts teacher got me interested in, not paedophilia obviously, in contact Muay Thai, contact karate. Then I moved into Muay Thai. And the rest is history. Yeah, Justin, I agree completely with that. But mental toughness is something lacking in modern students. Absolutely, absolutely. But training the top 2 inches is just as important as a physical training. Yeah, the top 2 inches. I like that. Train the brain. Absolutely. Yeah, teaching or grooming. Yeah. And that was Harry Cook, sadly. But he was a great karate teacher. I'll give it. He was old school karate, and that's something else we had back in the day. Old school karate. If you look back at some of the old boys, they were proper hard men. They were already fighters. Karate just, I don't know, it give them some sort of control. I guess it confined them a little bit more. But all of the best fighters I've seen limited the number of techniques. I mean, that's pretty common in Muay Thai. The best fighters don't have thousands of techniques. They have maybe 5 or 6. And some of you lads on here who are fighters will know what I'm talking about. Justin being probably the most seasoned fighter on here, definitely, with a whole range of fights behind him, as well as on the street. But not enough, not too much of that, I think, for legal reasons. But yeah, mental toughness is something I think people are afraid of, because obviously this is why I have 2 types of classes. I have what I call a commercial class, which pays the rent, and then I have my fighters classes. And even if there's just 2 or 3 people in the fighters class, we still run the class, and they're always hard. And some people have said I've been getting soft recently, but that's just because I'm old. I need to toughen up a bit. But yeah, toughness is difficult to train, which is what got me involved in neurolinguistic programming. I thought there's got to be a way I can put some of these ideas in more students. And it sort of worked to a certain extent. It really does. And it's sort of proven itself time and time again, because I get to speak to more and more fighters, more and more clients, more and more people who want to deal with the day-to-day shit that they have to carry around. Yeah, students basing their self-worth on wrong things, yeah, association, fashion, etc. Yeah, there's a lot of fickleness and fragility in modern society. It's the culture of me, isn't it? It's a culture of look at me, look at what I look like, not what I've achieved. And I'm still old school in the sense that action speaks louder than words. Just stop talking, stop showing people. I don't care how many sit-ups you've done this week. It really doesn't matter to me. When you turn up for training, it's what you do in the gym, the dojo, the kun, whatever you train. That speaks louder than words. And people have got the shorts and they've got the t-shirts, and that's fine. And if that's what they want, that's fine. And it's all about image nowadays. And yet, image is one of those things. It's the ego, isn't it? It's as transitory as every other thing in the universe. So, you build everything around your ego in a narcissistic way. When that's gone, what have you got left? I know as a performer, I met so many actors who were very fragile, and that if they failed an audition, they took it personally. It was like somebody had kicked them in the teeth. And I used to say, look, it's not you. It's just you weren't lucky. That's just the way it goes. And I always had a pretty laissez-faire attitude to auditions. And I never identified with me, as an entity, if you like. I would turn up, do the audition, and wait to see if I'd got it. Great. If I didn't get it, great. Move on. And this is the problem. People are so wrapped up in their ego, their sense of self, they believe to be real. And when things start falling apart, when it doesn't work out, they're surprised. And this takes me back to why I set up the development of this course called Beyond Belief, to take people beyond these limiting behaviours, these limiting beliefs that hold them back, and really stop them fulfilling their that's a horrible word, potential, whatever that means. It's just a word. So you've got to be careful with words and associations with words, because they're very powerful. But like all things, they're subject to change and can be pulled apart. And that's what we do when we practice meditation, or when we practice argument, discussion at a philosophical level. Yeah, the bonus of the pandemic is it has shown people's fragility, gives us clarity on who genuinely gives a damn about the art. Absolutely. I've seen people fall by the wayside. I've also seen people, and I personally don't condone it, working on pads and equipment as if the COVID virus is gone. Personally, I feel that's irresponsible, because we know for a fact that this pandemic hasn't finished yet. You guys know I work in quite closely with medics and have done for 12 years as a clinical educator. So I hear a lot of stuff that's going on at a clinical level. I don't listen to the politicians. They're full of shit. And they're wrapped up in their own little dogmas, and all based on money and the development of power. The COVID thing's not finished yet. And I think it's a bit short-sighted to start bringing people, particularly put them on the pads. In July, I'm going to have a look at the gym and decide to make an assessment and maybe bring 5 people at a time in, and work them on separate stations spread out in the gym, and people come in and leave separately, having washed their hands throughout. So there's not going to be any one-on-one work at all. And I think people have done this because they're desperate for cash. But we're all desperate for cash. I have had no earnings at all, apart from what my patrons have given me, thankfully, to get me through the months. But I'm certainly not going to go and open my gym purely to make money. That would make me nothing more than a Tory. And most of you know that doesn't fit in with the way I live my life. Never have been, never will be. They lack compassion, shall we just say. They lack compassion. Yeah, the pandemic has shown people up for what they really are, I think. And of course, has been really useful. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best thing that could have happened, in terms of what I've been doing over the past 3-4 months, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, the bills are just a bill. And if they don't get paid, they don't get paid. Quite honestly, they can do that, spin on that. And if people want to take my house off me, they can. It's only bricks and mortar, ultimately. I've actually got a very good tent. And you think I'm joking. So really, those things aside, the pandemic's given me opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I'd been in the gym teaching, if I'd been at the medical school teaching. A big opportunity, really, to develop all sorts of ideas, stuff I've been thinking about for years. And just in the past month, just having the breakthroughs I've had at a personal level in terms of philosophy and stuff, it's been amazing. Never thought that would happen, but it has. Justin, I found with some students fighters the fear of losing would ruin them. Yeah, exactly. You never win, you don't lose, it doesn't matter. Jason Pennell, one of my great fighters, Jason used to go into the ring and he didn't care whether he won or lost. He went in to enjoy the fight. And I think that's the key. Go in to enjoy the fight. And when you win, that's fantastic. And when you lose, that's fine as well, because you're going to learn something. We can learn something from that. And what I've found as well, a lot of winners never learned anything. You could never teach them anything after. Once they'd won 4 or 5 fights, you could never teach them anything. They could never be coached. Very strange, very strange. Yeah. Yeah, it is a good tent. Actually, I've just realised my son has got my tent because he borrowed it when we went down the Brecon Beacons a few years ago with my grandson. I took my grandson survival training on the Brecon Beacons. He was 6. Survival training for a 6-year-old. He loved it. Had to light fires and skin animals and chop down trees and build a shelter and drink water from streams. Yeah, it's good. Get those antibodies going. Yeah, Rick's right. Opportunity for growth and reflection. Absolutely, mate. Couldn't have said it better. That's what I was trying to say. I used the term fulfillment. A fulfillment. I feel fulfilled. I love words. What breakthroughs have I had? Says Stuart. At a personal level, yeah, something I've been working on all my life. And Dogen, the 12th century Zen monk, said, breaking. If you remember, you might remember me talking about this, Stuart, on the meditation course or on the NLP course that I ran recently. The falling away of body and mind. That's all I can say. Difficult to explain, difficult to see, difficult to show. Stream entrant is another word we can use for it. I don't know. Non-judgment. Yeah, there's been a shift. Yeah, I'm done now. I can die a happy man, quite literally. So that all sounds a bit esoteric, but it's not. Very practical, actually. It's very idea for a course. What you get out of losing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I've got books full of little stanzas, little things. I'm going to call it the Book of Chairman Bob. Yeah, the Book of Chairman Bob. I'm going to have to write that down, you know. I mean, that I've got to come up with something better than that. But thanks for that, Kay. This is what happens when we're doing the courses and the sessions together, especially the meditation sessions. It happens all the time. Ratul fought 6 guys with bamboo sticks and stones in the 7th grade. Fucked them up and got a few battle scars. Was that back in India? It sounds like that was back in India, mate. They love their sticks out there. Yeah. So I'm just writing a couple of things down that yeah. Oh man, yeah. Yeah, 6 guys with bamboo sticks. Yeah, if this goes back to Stuart, if you want to have a look at the works of Montaigne, who's a 16th century philosopher, Michel de Montaigne. Read some of his stuff. It's quite interesting what he says. What I've been just talking about, this dropping away of body and mind, and also Pyrrhonism, particularly the works of Sextus Empiricus. How would you spread the word about the HIGHERWAY code on the internet? How would I spread it without the internet? Well, by word of mouth, which is the way we used to do it back in the old days. Justin will remember that. Rick will be old enough to remember that, and Lucky certainly will be. There was a time when it was your skills that brought people to you. You had to be good at what you did to get students. It had very little to do with access to, well, there was no access, there was no internet. There were no laptops or computers or technology. We couldn't do anything like this. People would seek you out because of your reputation. And that's gone now. People are judged by their websites, by their marketing, by their uniforms, by their, all the extra stuff on top. So people will tend to only go to people who have all of this in place. Now that doesn't mean to say that there's not some people out there who have an infrastructure like that, can do all that, and they're good. So that's a good thing. But people like me, essentially, who've spent, well, until recently,
very little time bothering with all of that. Depended on just people coming to the gym. And back in the 80s and 90s, my gym was rammed. We used to get 40, 50 people in a class, and there were classes every night of the week. I was the only Thai boxing instructor in the area, and I had a good reputation. We produced lots of fighters. We were very organised. We had a syllabus, and but we didn't market. I didn't even have leaflets. I think I had business cards done. And then in '96, I got one of the first websites. I had a website, the Pride Pichai. Well, it's called proudpichai.com. But I was so busy, I never did any work on it, so that fell by the wayside. I don't even know what happened to the name, to be honest. It's probably still available. I should buy it, probably, instead of buying names like 50 Shades of Zen. Yeah, I know all about this now, Ratul. Thanks, Ratul. Yeah, I've got an SEO guy who does all that anyway. He's an old pal of mine. I've known him 50 years, and he's been developing websites and doing SEO for people since the start of the internet. He's an IT guy, trained in Cambridge University as well in computer sciences, I believe. He really does know his stuff. So I've got him doing stuff for me. Yeah, the old ways are fine, but you know, things change. That's what life's all about. Things are in a constant state of change. Okay, have you read the historical little booklet, How to Use Your Enemies by Baltasar Gracian? It talks about how to turn defeats and critique around and to keep composure. Oh, right. No, I haven't. And Justin says, I'll come back that a second, mate. Absolutely, I remember in the mid-80s, me and John travelling up the train with me many, many times because of what we heard about you, and convinced you to let us join the Pride Pichai. That's absolutely true. Some of you know this story, some might not, but John, who was Justin's instructor, John trained with Sken, and he'd heard about me, and him and Justin came up from Wales to train with me at the University of Birmingham in 1984-5. And John spent years convincing me to set up the Pride Pichai as an organisation and leave the British Thai Boxing Council, which I didn't at the time. And John, and with Justin as well, Justin was only young at the time, John convinced me to create the Pride Pichai down in Wales. And that's how the Pride Pichai started. We had John Ryan's club in Preston and my club in Birmingham. And John went off to the United States and left the Pride Pichai behind in Preston. Steve Scott took over with that, and then it started falling apart. I don't know what happened with it after that. And I continued to spread the word in Birmingham. And then we moved. The first one outside of Birmingham was, of course, Cwmbran, which is still there. And then there was Abergavenny, then a lot in South Wales, if I remember, and some in Wolverhampton at the time, I remember, and Darlaston, Wednesbury, all over the place, Plymouth, Falmouth, Dover, God, they were everywhere, Norfolk, Ipswich, we've still got one in Stowmarket, Newcastle, South Shields, Aberdeen, Dundee, Arbroath, Fife, Kilkenny, we've got one in Belfast, we had one in Hong Kong before the Chinese took over, we had it in the Seychelles, we had one in South Africa, one in Madagascar. In fact, we've still got a rep in Madagascar to this day. Ceylon, Sri Lanka, United States, God, everywhere. South America for a brief period. Literally everywhere. Western Islands of Scotland, Norway and Sweden. Belgium, Holland, Germany. We've still got 3 clubs in Germany. Belgium we haven't yet. That was going to be Care. But yeah, clubs everywhere. 70 or 80 clubs at one time. And not one of them paid me any money. Oh, we've still got one in Italy. Milan's been going for 30 years, or 28 years, something like that. So the club in Milan, 2 clubs in Milan, are still going strong. Obviously, you guys are aware I go over there regularly. Well, I did. This year we didn't. Australia, yeah, Australia, Western Australia, Perth. Craig still got it. Still keeps in touch with me now and again on Facebook. Craig, oh, I can't remember his name. Craig Galvin or something like that. Craig, not Craig Galvin. Craig. Anyway, Craig. So yeah, I've been around a long time. This, I think, probably the single largest Thai boxing group in the world, probably. And that was never the intention. It's just a giant family. And my accountant still shakes his head and says, you could have made a fortune. Yep, that's how an accountant thinks. Well, the way I see it is, I have made a fortune. I've got lots of friends. You know, people I've still kept in touch with over the years. Oh yeah, we're over 90 clubs last time when we did a club count. That's right, 90 clubs. So pretty large group. And now any man and his dog has a Thai boxing club. They're everywhere. And the number of people who've jumped on board, hung on my shirt tails for a few years, and then sort of gone off and created their own system, just incredible, you know, which says a lot about the old values of the martial arts. They've gone now. Sadly, there's not much of that left now. It's sort of the old rear guard that are left, people like Rick and people like Justin, who still sort of have at least some sort of sense of honour about the whole thing. Yeah, I should have franchised it. Millionaire this time next year, Rodney. But no, it's still ticking away, and a lot of the clubs are still going to be going after the COVID thing's finished, when we finally come to the end of it sometime later this year or even next year. Who knows? We don't know. So guys, thanks for joining us. I mean, 11 people, that's not bad for the first one back. Oh yeah, after the meditation we discussed objects versus processes. Have we read Tao Physics? Yeah, Capro's book is really good, but there's a better one. You knew I was going to say that, didn't you? Julian, right. Now, Fritjof Capro's book's good, but it's not as good as the Dancing Wooly Masters, right? Let me get it. If I can find it. The Dancing Wooly. Oh man, do you know what? I don't know where I put it. I did get it out and show it to someone. I'll write the name in the box. Gary Zukov, right? Fantastic. It's better than the Tao of Physics came after the book, the Dancing Wooly Masters, and this is significantly better. Okay, Julian, read that. Read Gary Zukov, okay, the Dancing Wooly Masters. Crazy title. All about particle physics and its links with some of the early ideas of Buddhism, from the Abhidharma, the concept on cosmology and a sense of self and process in the universe, and a lot of stuff on emptiness, the concept of Wu Wei, spontaneity, and Mu, nothingness. Have a look at that. It's a cracking book. It's a bit dated. The physics is a little bit out of date, but the concepts are still, you know, relevant. Absolutely fantastic bit of work. Yeah, Tao of Physics. He wrote 2 books actually. I can't remember the name. I did have Tao of Physics. I think I lent it out. He did write another book as well, but I can't put my hand on it or remember it. But Dancing Wooly Masters made a huge impact on me. A huge impact. And don't, you know, I just read it. Brilliant. There's some great writers out there, even more so now. Julian, you weren't on board. You'd love this book, The Knowledge Illusion. Okay, it's a fairly new book. The Myth of Individual Thought and the Power of Collective Wisdom. Okay, really good book. A couple of very clever guys. I'm not sure of their background. I think they're neuroscientists. and chapters on why we think, how we think, why we think, what isn't so, thinking with our bodies, thinking with other people, thinking with technology, and a big appraisal of ignorance and illusion. It's a really good book, that. You probably need to read that. I've only just started it because I've been too busy with Piros Way, a book we were talking about earlier on by Doug Bates. Get it and do not give it away. I'm not lending this to anybody. If somebody wants this book, I'll buy it for them. Yeah. So guys, I'm happy to stay on as you can imagine. Otherwise, we've reached the conclusion of tonight's session. Tomorrow night we've got Thai boxing on at 6 o'clock, and Saturday I'm teaching some broadsword online at 11 o'clock. If anybody's up for that, 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, live, providing the weather's good. Because I'm going to be teaching it from the garden because it's a big fuck off sword. Can you say that on YouTube? Sword? I don't know. I believe the weather is going to be, according to this, is going to be good on Saturday. So keep your eyes on YouTube and Facebook and the other social media. And we'll, if you want to learn a little bit of Scottish broadsword, hey, we can be doing that as well. I love my life. It's brilliant. I don't think there's anything else to add, guys. Wish my calf would heal fast. Yeah, sadly, I know. Some people are carrying injuries, but you got to look after the calf. Don't do what people like me, Lucky, Justin, and Rick have done over the years, and probably Julian, training with injuries. It never works out well. It never works out well. So, guys, I do appreciate you coming on and listening to my nonsense for this lengthy period of time. Yeah, KSM broadsword recommended. It is fun, and if you do Oriental martial arts, which most of you do, you'll see the links. You'll be like, oh yeah, oh wow. So yeah, quite seriously, give it a whirl. I mean, then you'll get obsessed and end up with 11 or 12 swords. I think it's 12, the last count. That doesn't include kukris, K-bars, sticks, single sticks, Thai swords, and so on. Yeah, great. Thanks, Justin. Thanks a lot, mate. I do enjoy these. It'd be nice if we could actually talk. But I said this probably 2 months ago, I have set up a podcast and I'm going to start doing interviews with people. So if you know anybody or would like me to interview somebody for a podcast, and it can be about anything, it can be about philosophy, martial arts, anything at all. I love doing interviews. I used to write for Combat Magazine, as some of you know, and I used to regularly interview people. I love doing interviews, and I've got a particularly distinctive style of interviewing, which I think people like. And I'm like the Michael Parkinson of martial arts. No, I can't. Whatever. The Russell Harty, I suppose you could say. So if you know anybody who's relatively well known in any field, get them to contact me. I'd love to do a podcast with them and find out a little bit about them. I'm going to try and get this guy, Doug. I want to try and do an interview with Doug Bates, who wrote this book, because I've got some questions I want to ask him, and it'd be interesting to do a talk on him. So if anybody knows anybody, go for it. So thanks, guys. I do appreciate you coming on, and of course, as well, I appreciate the guys who are patrons. I have to keep saying that. I do really appreciate the fact that you know, going somewhere towards sort of helping me limp through the COVID thing until I'm back on my feet, as it were. Okay, so, guys, if anything happens to you, Bob, you just want to hope Jen doesn't sell the swords for what you do. Yeah, well, one of them is worth a lot more than I paid for it, and she knows about that one, and that is the Victorian sword that I've got. which takes pride of place. This beautiful, beautiful antique. It's 1822. It is a masterpiece. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And as you can see, if it focuses, you can see the etching on the blade. And that was probably used in the time of Wellington, in the Napoleonic Wars. I don't know whose sword it was, maybe an officer's by the looks of it. But that's worth a lot of money now, a lot more than I paid for it, 800 quid. Okay guys, so thanks for coming on. I'm going to have to end the session there. Keep in touch. Yes, thanks Lucky, it's great to see you on here. Thanks Julian, thanks Rick, thanks Justin, thanks Kay, thanks Tom, you came on earlier on. A few people came on earlier on. Thanks to all of you, Tina, Dave, who else? Oh, I'm sorry if I missed you. Ratul, obviously. How can you scroll through these names? That's what I want to know. Can you scroll through them or not? Probably not, no. But thanks to everybody anyway. And thanks for the thumbs up as well. And keep following my blogs and listening and reading my newsletters. All right, guys. All right. You lot take care now. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Good night.